Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today to the Health and Food Trends webinar for 2022. Just to give you all a brief introduction about myself, my name is Lucas Pettinato. I'm an industry manager here at Similarweb, and I specialize in the food and health and household categories, meaning that I support our internal teams as well as external clients on all of the newest industry trends that we're seeing from our historical data, and then also predictive in the future. So I'm very, very excited to bring you all today trends in the health and food space. To go over what we'll be covering today, we're going to be splitting it into a few different parts. So first we're going to do is cover the health industry and then the food industry. And in terms of topics that we're going to discuss, before we go right into predicting, what the trends are going to be for 2022 for these categories, we first have to look back. So we're going to kick things off by looking at a digital landscape overview for each industry, as well as big trends that we saw in 2021, specifically in consumer behavior. And then lastly, we're going to do a forecast, 2022 forecast, where we're going to talk about trends to ditch, trends that we saw rising and increasing in the past that may not do as well this year, but then trends to watch, what's on the rise, what's new, what's fast growing. So you guys can be all informed on that. And then lastly, I'll sum things up with some key takeaways that you can take away with you at the end of the presentation. And we'll do a live Q&A session. So feel free afterwards to post your questions in the chat, send them to host and participants. And I'll make sure to go through as many of them as I can in the end. So thank you all so much again. And if you just joined, welcome. We're going to be kicking off the Health and Food Trends webinar for 2022. So our first part is we're going to be talking about the health industry. But before I go into full presenter mode, I did want to make things a bit engaging to kind of kick things off. I know it's an early morning for some. So when we're talking about the health industry, when the health industry comes to mind, there is one word that has been on everyone's minds. Does anyone want to post in chat to see what that word is? There is one word that comes to mind when talking about the health industry nowadays. What is it? I already see someone posted something. Do they have the correct answer? Diets keto. That's really, that wasn't the answer I had for this, but we will be talking about diets and keto today. So thank you so much for calling that out. That's a bit of a preview. What else? Say any other words when you think of health, healthcare in our modern world. I'll give everyone a hint. It's been on everyone's mind for about 2 years. Yeah, it's plaguing basically the world, or has been plaguing the world. Any other guesses? I'm seeing COVID. I'm seeing supply. So someone wrote supply. Honestly, supply has been plaguing us for the past years. I still cannot get a Tide bottle or something like that. But yes, we're seeing a lot of people are writing COVID, social distancing. Yes, that has been a plague as well, unfortunately. But yes, most guys, masks. Yeah, everyone has it right. So basically, when it comes to what's been on our mind for the past 2 years, it's COVID. COVID has been on our minds. And for the past 2 years, the COVID pandemic has basically dictated a lot of industry trends. And consumers had to adapt to match their socially isolated environments. And along the way, while we were living new lifestyles, we picked up new behaviors along the way. So we're finally at a point where things are going back to normal. So for example, I think, in New York City, the mask mandate was just lifted on Monday, which is pretty exciting. I know that's happening across the rest of America as well. So we're predicting that some of the recent trends and behaviors that we picked up during the pandemic will stay with us post-pandemic, whatever that means, to you. So keep COVID in mind throughout this presentation. It's going to come up a lot. But I am excited to share with you how things have kind of developed outside of the typical norm of COVID. So to kick things off, I want to talk about the digital landscape overview of the health category. So looking at these two graphs, as well as the top websites and brands on Amazon, you can see that COVID brought a foundational lift to the category. And that is in terms of monthly website visits, so across the internet, as well as units sold on Amazon within the health category. So when it comes to, who is leading this charge, who is leading the primarily having most of the traffic and website visits, we're seeing pharmaceutical retailers as well as health information providers leading the category in web visits, which makes sense because over the past 2 years, digital users have basically scoured all of the internet for resources on COVID, whether it's the vaccine, testing locations, etc. And then, within the internet deeper on Amazon specifically, we're seeing that consumers were turning to Amazon for their health and home care purchases to defend against the virus. So things that are outside of the vaccine. So you'll look and see some of the top brands over the past 2 years was Lysol with their disinfectant wipes, which I literally don't even know if I can still get on Amazon, as well as Solimo, Nature Bounty, Now Foods. Those are all leading vitamins and supplements brands, which we'll be talking a lot about in this presentation, and kind of how people have increased their knowledge base and looked for resources to defend against COVID outside of the vaccine. So yeah, large lift across the board from COVID. Now, moving on into specific trends of 2021 of the health category. The biggest one I had talked about today, which I alluded in the last slide, was the visitation to pharmaceutical retailer sites. So think CVS, Walgreens, even Rite Aid. We saw that visitation to these pharmaceutical retailer sites correlated with pandemic milestones, as I guess we could call them. So think about such as public distribution of the COVID vaccine in March 21, the Delta variant outbreak in August 21, as well as our recent Omicron outbreak in December and November 21. You can see that the spikes in the pharmaceutical retail website visitations spiked specifically during those times. And, there's no doubt that there's some sort of correlation there that people are flocking to these websites in search of COVID resources when searches hit. And you can even see in the top non-branded search terms, as well as the top branded search terms, that people are really looking for COVID resources, whether it's testing, vaccine, specific types of tests like rapid tests. And then in the branded, we're seeing most people looking for Walgreens and CVS, and specifically vaccines or testing at those retailers. The last thing I wanted to call out about this slide, though, that I thought was really interesting is that in 2021, fake news was spreading fast. So I have this highlighted term, ivermectin, which I always have to just pause before I say it because it's always a kind of a weird word to read. But over the past summer, ivermectin, which is a medicine that treats parasitic diseases, was thought to treat COVID-19, but don't worry, that has been disproven, as you probably have assumed. But what this kind of shows us is that users online within the health industry tend to flock to new health trends when in desperate need and in desperate search for solutions. So I think this was specifically relevant because it happened during the summer when the Delta variant outbreak occurred. People were getting sick even though they were vaccinated. So people were now in desperate need of okay, what else could work? What else could I take if I have COVID symptoms or want to prevent COVID? Yeah, so I thought that was extremely interesting. And moving on to the flip side of things, we just talked about website trends and pharmaceutical retailers, and now I'm going to talk about Amazon trends in 2021. So what we're seeing here is that Amazon search behavior saw through all the COVID bloat you were just seeing in the last slide, where every top term was about COVID. As users were not turning to Amazon for COVID testing or vaccine resources, but instead they were going to Amazon for household items, vitamins and supplements, sports nutrition, anything to what we saw as an overall theme to boost their immune systems to defend against COVID. So from the sports nutrition category, let's start there because I have a few categories highlighted. We're seeing protein powder, creatine, pre-workout as top terms. And the reason why that's important is because summer 21 marked a time where gyms and fitness centers were reopening. So everyone was suddenly in the mood to get back into their, summer bodies and to start working out again and live their healthy lifestyle. So we really saw those shooting up on the charts in 21. From the vitamins and supplements category, we were seeing terms like ashwagandha, which is a buzzword I'll be calling out later on in this presentation, but we're also seeing vitamin D and vitamin C. And the reason why this is important is because before and after the COVID vaccine was available, consumers had to turn to alternative solutions to protect themselves against the virus. And what we saw a lot of consumers turning towards was vitamins and vitamin C, vitamin D, as a way to just naturally boost their immune systems. And what we're seeing, and this will kind of be the recap later on, is that consumers are really becoming more knowledgeable on how to protect their bodies and how to help their bodies. So that was something that was interesting to see, and it's something that we think is going to continue later on. Another trend I saw on Amazon that I wanted to call out that I thought was really interesting. Amazon's health category actually suffered a loss, a significant, like a noticeable loss in subscribe and save share on Amazon during Q4 21. So what this is telling me, this noticeable regression of consumer behavior, speaks to what I think is a predictive trend for the category in the future. As we near the end, hopefully, of the pandemic, Amazon shoppers are actually canceling their subscriptions and moving towards one-time purchases when their health needs arise. And, we're not just seeing this in the health category, but we're seeing this across a variety of Amazon categories. So why is that? Well, I think in the beginning of the pandemic and even the thick of it, people had their mindset on securing supply, right? Someone mentioned that one of the biggest ailments of the past 2 years was supply, right? That's correct. And people were turning to subscribe and save in order to secure that supply, so that they weren't caught empty-handed when they needed it the most. So now that we're in a part of the pandemic where supply is not as much of an issue in the health category, and things are mandates are lifting, we're going back to being social all the time. People are not in desperate need of product right when they need it, and thus they are no longer in need of securing that monthly supply. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be seeing that change a lot, I think, as the future goes. Maybe more and more people relying less on subscribe and save. And now to the grand finale of each section. So before, now that we've looked at an overview of the health industry and 2021 trends, let's dig more into 2022 trends. But before we talk about what we think is going to blow up or increase over this past year, let's talk about trends of the past that we actually think might not do as well this year. So looking first at websites, I know you might be shocked to see this. It's the same exact graph, except it's extended a little bit about visitation to pharmaceutical retailer websites. So earlier, we discussed that visits to pharmaceutical retailer sites correlated with pandemic milestones. And typically that was good for these retailers during the pandemic, because as it surged, more people would come to the website and more business for CVS and Walgreens. But now seeing that the Omicron surge had a lesser social impact than other variants, we're predicting that pharmaceutical retailers will see a major reduction in traffic in 2022 as even potential future COVID surges become less and less severe, and social restrictions are just not what they will be in the future, or they're completely updated. This might eventually turn into a seasonal cold in a way. And, there's no way that there's, CVS or Walgreens is going to flop and they're not going to have any more visitation, but you're just not going to be seeing these same significant spikes as you've seen in the past, maybe little ones, but definitely nothing as crazy as we were seeing with, the vaccine coming out, or Delta, or even Omicron, now that we integrate back into society. So thought it was good to call that out. Switching to the other side, though, we're looking at Amazon. Now, some of you may have noticed that there was some injury tech. I know massage gun was listed in the top keywords for Amazon in 21, but when I was examining the category further, I saw that there was a noticeable decrease year over year over the past few months for the massage tool and equipments category on Amazon. And what I think was really interesting about this is that, first of all, the category hasn't really been going into the negative in a really long time. It's the first time I've been seeing the category go into the negative since it really blew up. But secondly, it decreased year over year during the holiday season, which I think is interesting because that's usually peak for that specific category, because people will be buying massage guns and all these different types of tech for people they love, for gift giving and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see that it hasn't been doing so well lately. And I actually predict that this is the beginning of the end of a massage tech fad. And the reason for this is I think the category's business model, it's really has to come down to the business model, because the business model for this category solely relies on new customers and is not renewable by nature. So think of it like this. If I want some massage tech, like I want a massage gun, and someone gets me a massage gun, I no longer want a massage gun. Like I'm one less person who needs a massage gun, and I'll never need it again, most likely. So I'm no longer a new customer. So the nature of itself is kind of solely reliant on new customers in a way, and thus it is naturally going to decrease, in my opinion. But I also, this is not a personal attack against the massage gun category. I have a massage gun, but I do think that massage guns will eventually inherit the reactions that speakers get when you receive them as gifts. Speakers are something that a lot of people have, and now a lot of people have massage guns. It can be seen as kind of like a generic gift that's not as maybe personable or customized to the person. So I have a feeling that massage tech might kind of lean towards that in the future. So yeah, those are the trends overall that we think you should ditch for 2022. Let me just see too. And then, okay, so now moving on to, the grand finale of this sector, the trends that you should be watching in 2022 for the health category. So when we were looking at websites, I specifically for this project looked a lot at what were fast growing terms or fast growing categories. And the top 5 fastest growing terms year over year have to do with COVID tests and COVID test kits, specifically at home COVID test kits. All of the top 5 fastest growing search terms all mentioned at home COVID testing kits, with, I believe, the top term COVID test kit growing, I think it was like 2,300% year over year, which is astronomical, right? So some of you may remember that at-home test kits became popular during this past holiday season when the Omicron variant hit, and people were once again in desperate need of getting a COVID test before they would see their relatives for the holidays. So pharmacies stocked their shelves with at-home COVID test kit, which I think were retailing for about $20, as well as in America, UPS did a whole, project where they were giving people free at-home test kits if you were to put in your address and stuff into their website. And so I feel like both of these larger brands were really leading the shift in consumer behavior around testing. So now that COVID testing has been such a staple of our healthcare industry for so long, consumers are finally starting to prioritize things that matter to them, right? So accessibility, time, pricing when it comes to testing. People no longer want to wait on long lines. People want tests when they want, they want the test results when they want them back, and they don't want to pay, potentially a lot of money to get a PCR or a rapid test. So it seems like consumers are now finally taking back control of their health and their healthcare when it comes to testing, now that we're formally acclimated into the pandemic. So expect to see a lot more at-home COVID tests coming in the future, especially when COVID surges again. On the Amazon side of things, we saw that most of the fastest growing keywords on Amazon year over year were related to the vitamins and supplements category. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. So the most important thing you should know about vitamins and dietary supplements, both on and off Amazon, is that they operate primarily based on trends and fads, because consumers are constantly changing their vitamin regimen in search of their newest solution to both their personal and environmental needs, right? So during COVID, I mentioned this before, we saw increases in immune support vitamins, and you can see them here as well, like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc. The immune support keyword had an increase as well, because as we said, consumers were searching for alternatives, solutions to the vaccine or before the vaccine. But based upon how immune support is trending, we believe that this is going to continue into the future because, as I mentioned, consumers are a lot more health conscious and a lot more knowledgeable now. So I think they're going to continue turning to immune support vitamins as future threats hit them, whether it's COVID, whether it's other flus or ailments in the future. People are going to continue investing a lot into boosting their own immune system because that's how they can help themselves outside of how else anyone else can help them, right? Another thing we saw, so I know I mentioned ashwagandha earlier. So last year, ashwagandha was what we kind of call like the big fad of the year. Ashwagandha is a natural herb that is known for its anti-inflammatory properties and stress anxiety relief. But this year, we're seeing high growth and fast growth from a few other fad vitamins that I could call them. One is maca root, and the other is magnesium threonate. Oh my gosh, these long technical words always throw me off, which I believe, magnesium actually saw a 416% year over year increase in clicks. Now, what do those two vitamins do? Well, magnesium threonate is a salt known to improve brain health as well as help depression. And maca root is a vitamin that helps with energy, right? Something I think you might be able to tell from this is that consumers are really clinging to vitamins that fit their current environments. So during COVID, we were seeing a lot of stuff that was helping with stress release, anxiety release, things like that, because people were stressed about the pandemic and stressed about what the future would look like and things like that. But now that we're reintegrating back into society and hoping to be sociable and things like that, people need ways to kind of, reintegrate. And things like maca root, which gives you energy, things that help depression, memory loss, are ways that people are coping and things that people are consuming in order to feel like a normal human again. So that's how you should look at trends and fads within vitamin supplements. What is going on in the environment? And lastly, I was, talking about this presentation with a coworker, and she mentioned that she was seeing maca root a lot on TikTok and other social media platforms. So know that vitamins and subs, and we'll even see in the food category, have a large presence on social media sites, and that's how the word is really spread. So definitely important to keep in mind. So now we're going to be moving into the food and health industry. We're going to be talking through the same structure. I'm going to take a little sip of water since I've been talking a lot. And thank you all so much for being here. If more people joined, welcome in. Oh, someone said maca root is amazing to treat PMS and menopause symptoms if anyone's interested. That's great to call out. I know I've been learning new things about maca root like every single day. And I'm like, wow, this root is like really iconic. It seems like just helping everyone with everything, But anyway, yes, thank you all so much for being here again. If you just popped in, we are now moving on to discussing trends within the food and grocery industry. So kicking off, you're going to be seeing a lot of the similar slides, and now we're going to be doing a digital overview of the food category. So as you can see, similar to the former slide with the health category, COVID was bringing a foundational lift to the category, whether it was in website visits or Amazon units sold. You can see things are spiking after March 20 and really staying on that baseline. But something that was also noticeable is that mobile website visits increased by nearly 50% from September 21 to January 21, which is showing that a lot more people are using specifically their phones and the mobile web in order to look within the food and grocery category, whether it's for recipes, go online to order some food. People are really transitioning from desktop more onto mobile. When it comes to the leaders of the internet and websites in terms of visitation, we were seeing that cooking and grocery websites were leading visits as users were showing interest in finding new recipes and grocery delivery services and even meal delivery from restaurants. On the flip side of things, looking at Amazon, as expected, Amazon basically owns most of the grocery category on their own site with Whole Foods or their own Amazon Fresh brands. So you're going to see them really leading a lot of units sold because the retailer naturally has an advantage selling their own private label online. So you'll see things like Whole Food Market, their produce aisle, and even brands like Happy Belly, which is an Amazon-owned brand, you'll see also topping the chart. So Amazon really having top control over most of their market. Now, looking into what I think was the biggest trend of 2021 that I actually don't think has fully reached its potential yet and will continue to see growing. So it's kind of like a preview for 2022 trends is instant grocery delivery services. Has everyone heard of those things? So basically instant delivery grocery service is like the other grocery delivery services you've been seeing like Instacart and Peapod and things like that. But it's more of like 15 minutes or less, 30 minutes or less, competitive pricing, no delivery fee, right? You'll see a lot of apps like Gorilla, Getir, GoPuff, which we'll be talking about in a second, breaking into this marketplace and trying to disrupt. So GoPuff, which is one of the leading instant grocery delivery services that has actually been around for a few years, increased their website visits steadily throughout 2021, while larger, more established restaurant delivery services like Seamless and Postmates actually saw a steady decrease throughout the year. So I thought that was really interesting. Why is something like GoPuff, which you see as the dark blue line, just going up while things like that are catering to restaurant delivery as well as grocery delivery going down? And we think that this is the first sign of a new trend where, as consumers become more comfortable with food delivery services, as you can see with the top branded terms like Instacart and DoorDash and things like that, they're beginning to prioritize speed, convenience, and pricing when selecting their delivery services of choice. So you can recall this was similar to the test kit trend for the COVID at-home test kit, where now that we are comfortable with this behavior of consuming food via an app, people now want to put their priorities first, right? We have options to choose from, and they're going to start moving towards that. So if people are seeing instant grocery delivery, they're seeing no delivery fees, et cetera, they're going to flock to that. The customer is always flocking to the price and the price they have to pay. So I believe, this is just the start of it, and that there's going to be a lot more increases from instant delivery grocery services in the future, especially as they continue to market more. I know they've been marketing a lot in New York City. Something also interesting to note is the split between top non-branded search terms as well as top branded search terms. We're seeing from the non-branded side that a lot of people are cooking and making recipes and, making a nice meatloaf for the family. But then from the brand side of things, it's like specifically Domino's, DoorDash, ordering out restaurant delivery. So it's kind of showing, American consumers are really split on whether they're choosing to cook a nice meal for themselves or their family, or to just order out for the night. Yes, GoPuff. I see some people writing in the chat as well. Someone said GoPuff started out on DoorDash. I think that's really interesting that you call that out, because now, they've broken out of the platform and, they're basically starting to compete against it. Is the chart, someone also said, is the chart US only? Yes, every single chart, graph, everything here is US only. Thank you for calling that out. Sorry, I did not preface that in the beginning, but yes, this is all US only. Thank you guys for that. So moving on to now 2021 trends in food for Amazon specifically, looking at the top keywords of 2021, we see that Amazon search engine and customer search behavior on Amazon saw through Amazon own brand bloat. So before, when you were just seeing Happy Belly and all the Amazon produce aisles and stuff, we're actually seeing a lot more brand variety here, as it shows that top keywords that users search for were not actively towards Amazon owned brand names, but rather for non-branded keywords. But even for these non-branded keywords, you'll see with like coffee, snacks, and chocolate, name brands were still able to break through on Amazon, as plenty of Amazon shoppers, and myself included, are still loyal to their favorite brand. So even if they're typing in chocolate, there's a good chance that they're going with Hershey's rather than like an Amazon owned brand, or a private label, unbranded, unfamiliar chocolate. So that's good to see them still being able to break through. Something you may have noticed, and one of our participants here called out earlier, is there's only one term that is not referencing a household food or beverage, and that's keto. So keto was a big diet of 2021 and previous years as well. We're going to be talking about keto and diets a lot in the rest of this presentation. So hang on to your hats, because transitioning right into 2022 trends to ditch. Now that we've looked over the overview of the health industry and 2021 trends, let's talk about trends that were doing well in the past that we think maybe we should back up on, or maybe we should ditch. Starting on the website side of things, nutritional diets. Website visitation, we actually, starting in July of 21, started to see year-over-year declines in website visits for each of the following months for the nutrition diets category across the internet. What specifically surprised me about this is that the categories was still even seeing a decline in January 22, when users typically plan to commit to their New Year's resolutions, which often includes weight loss, right? So I was almost under the assumption that we were going to see some increases, or even just like a lesser increase, because one of the American population's biggest New Year's resolution is weight loss, and to see it go negative this year around, it makes you think like, what is for the future of, diets in America? And something that I predict is that this is the first sign of a new trend where instead of investing time, money, and energy into restrictive diets, Americans are putting more effort into healthy eating and home cooked meals, as we saw previously, where people are, some of the top terms are meatloaf recipe and pancake recipe and things like that. I actually did a one-pager on this recently, where I was looking at quarter-over-quarter growth for websites, and I saw that some of the fastest growing websites were about healthy eating and healthy lifestyles. So it's an interesting thing where maybe more so Americans are trending now towards healthy eating rather than restrictive dieting. And on the flip side of that, but very, very related, I know we saw keto as one of the top ranking terms in 2021 on Amazon, but the majority of the year, we saw the keyword performing less than it did the previous year, right? So top keyword doesn't always necessarily correlate to fastest growing. And in a similar vein to website performance for the nutrition diets category, we predict that this is the first sign that the keto diet fad is going to decline. I think at this point, keto's been around for a while. People have tried keto. People have loved keto. People have hated keto. And similar to vitamins and supplements, where people will try the newest vitamin fad, people are now ready for what's the newest diet, right? What's the newest lifestyle of eating now that I've tried keto and maybe it worked or it didn't work. That's kind of what consumers are trending more towards now. So interesting to see that keto was not performing as well as we thought it would this year. Do you think, someone said in the chat too, not to break in, do you think we're going to see more stuff like home meal kits? I know home meal kits was doing really, really well, specifically in the beginning of the pandemic. I think as people start to integrate more into a cooking lifestyle or get more serious about cooking, especially as things are coming back to normal, I think we will see more interest in home meal kits, especially as marketing is pushed out. So thank you for that question. Someone said, thank God, keto's awesome, but we took it too far. That's fun. I've had so many friends doing keto diets where they're like, yes, I have not eating a single grain in 3 years. And I'm like, I could not, I'm an Italian. I can't live without pasta and bread. I don't know how some of these people do it, But anyways, to get to our final slide for the food and grocery part, we're going to talk now more importantly about what are some trends you should be watching in the food and health category for the future. One of the biggest trends, and this definitely relates to healthy eating and cooking, overnight oats. So keywords that mentioned overnight oats saw a huge increase year over year in traffic growth in January 21, with the overnight oats recipe getting, to about 1,300% year over year, right? So this easy yet nutritional breakfast trend was first picked up during COVID as people across the US were suddenly made responsible for every single meal every single day, which even for myself, someone who loves cooking, it was a lot, especially for breakfast, right? But I can tell you, even in my own family, we were eating overnight oats every single morning because they're easy to make. You make them the night before, you can put fruit in them and all that stuff, and it's really healthy. So users search for convenience, and on social media platforms like TikTok, my colleagues were also telling me overnight oats was also trending. So that was another way that fad really spread the word. And who knows, maybe one day this will be a staple of American culture, American breakfast culture, who knows? But overall, we're seeing people really interested in making their own meals, making healthy meals. And that's something that's really cool to see, is specifically across the internet in America. And now on the flip side of things, this is probably my favorite insight. So I'm excited to share this with you. But to kind of speak generally, we were talking about non-branded search terms within the food category in previous slides, but seeing a brand like Simple Mills be the top fastest growing keyword, and it's not necessarily branded, it's for all keywords, shows that consumers are trending towards brand name goods in their food and grocery searches. Simple Mills, I think, had a 239% year over year growth. So that's interesting because unlike what we saw in the search terms, consumers are more familiar with brand names and they want to actually buy those specific brand names within food and grocery. So expect to see more brand names popping up even in top terms in the future. But more importantly, in an interesting twist of events, the second fastest growing keyword, great value, Give everyone a second to let that sink in, to see if everyone knows what Great Value is or what Great Value is talking about. And if you guessed it, Great Value is actually a Walmart brand. It's a Walmart private label brand, but it yet was the second fastest growing keyword in food and grocery on Amazon. What is that about? Well, when I was looking at customer reviews for some of the Great Value products I saw on Amazon, we see that our lovely guest Diane said that I love these and glad Amazon has them because Walmart keeps running out of them. Wow. So she's basically telling us what the consumer behavior is and giving us some insight. So thank you, Diane. So what we're seeing is that consumers are searching for their favorite private label products on Amazon when their specific retailer runs out. I think originally a lot of, I've talked to a lot of retailers in the past thinking that on Amazon, their products will not thrive because as one thinks, Amazon has the natural advantage with their private label products in order to push those over other retailers or other brands' products. But we can see that when it comes to really popular brands and private label brands like Great Value, which is usually good quality at a low price, those brands are really still breaking through on Amazon, specifically when there seems to be supply in the past. So keep that in mind. Expect to see more popular brands maybe popping up on Amazon in the future, because I think it is a marketplace that has a lot of potential for things that are popular, regardless whether they're Amazon specific or not. And that is technically the end of all the content I'll be sharing with you today. But to recap the trends that we saw in 2022, so everyone has this grilled in their minds of what they can take away from this presentation when it comes to health trends to watch. So there is going to be a behavior shift in COVID browsing as well as COVID testing. Traffic to pharmaceutical retailers will fall alongside the COVID case count and will continue to fall until they kind of reach what the base was, maybe even before, maybe a little bit of more than it was before the pandemic. But what we really think is that at-home testing and at-home testing kits are going to become a lot more popular. When it comes to fads in vitamins and dietary supplements category, we're going to see a lot of increased interest, continued increases of interest in immune support like vitamin C, vitamin D, things like that, anything to protect your bodies against future viruses. But we're also going to see, newest fad trends for 2022, maca root, magnesium threonate. Keep those in mind. I bet you they're going to keep growing more and more as we see. And then food and drink trends to watch for 2022. Keep in mind instant grocery delivery services. They are here. They will capture market share from more popular delivery services with their value proposition. I have no doubt about that. And Americans are cooking more and leaning away from restrictive diets that are, restricting their eating and their lifestyles because healthy eating can be just as good for them. So good to see that Americans are cooking and eating healthy. Also, popular private label brands are making headway on Amazon, especially if there's any supply issues or where things sell out. Amazon, excuse me, is not only the first choice for people to find, goods and services, but it is also people's second choice when, product runs out on their primary source retailer websites. So yeah, really cool to see that. And now I will open the floor to you all to have any questions you'd like to ask me. I'll be able to go through a few now, but I'll have my email to share afterwards if anyone has any questions or wants to connect. But so while you think of questions right now to ask me in the chat, I just want to say thank you all so much for coming today. It means the world. I hope you guys had a good time and learned something about health and food trends in 2022. I know I had a good time putting together this presentation, and I have a lot of stuff that I can share with my family and friends. They'll most certainly surprise them. So yeah, thank you all so much again for coming. So we'll just wait a little bit for some questions coming. I already see some people posting questions. Ooh, amazing. Love how active everyone is today as well. I do love an active audience, so thank you all for that. All right, let's see. Let me take a sip of water. So the first question I'm seeing is, how do you predict that massage tech companies will stay relevant in the consumer journey, even though their business model is not naturally renewable? That's a great question. I think, right, the massage tech category is not a category that's like meant to die. It's not like they're just going to push out these products and then let it fade away. And then, nothing else is, there's going to be no more massage tech in the future. Of course, it's going to stay around. I think massage tech has the same model that phones might have. You have a phone, I have a phone right here, and you technically don't need another phone unless it dies. And I think the way that this industry is going to iterate on itself is just by product innovation. I think that they are going to be making newer and better products every year, every other year. Maybe they'll have different sort of features that will just help more with injury technology and things like that. And I think that that's their best way to stay relevant, because specifically those who are, I guess, like the fanatics of massage tech will always renew and get the newest product, as well as people who are buying gifts for their loved ones for the holidays will just end up buying the newest massage tech. So I think that that's going to be the newest trend. I think that's how massage tech is going to stay relevant. Another question I received: if Americans are trending towards cooking / healthy eating and away from restrictive diets, what meals or cuisines do you predict Americans will cook more of? That's a great question. I actually was looking at this a lot recently, and I saw that the Mediterranean diet, not like a restrictive diet, but the cuisine, Mediterranean was trending and fastest growing keywords, but like lower down on the list that I didn't show. I've also been seeing, I think the Mediterranean cuisine was like voted this year as like the best cuisine or like the healthiest cuisine that you can like live in. And, because it has a lot of plant protein, a lot of fresh foods, not as much processed meals and things like that. So I actually think there's going to be a lot more Mediterranean eating just based on that. I myself love Mediterranean food. So even just that, I might as well be taking up the majority of the population's search on Mediterranean foods, Yeah, thank you so much for those questions though. Reading some others. Okay. What trends do you see for the coffee sector? That's a great question. Recently in the past, I know everyone knows that there's been supply issues with a lot of things in grocery stores. And one of them was coffee. I believe coffee was having supply issues in grocery stores. So that was something to keep in mind of, because I feel like people really needed their at-home coffee, and they weren't able to get it, which was really stressful for a lot of people. I believe in my search, I was seeing a lot of stuff on K-Cups and a lot of like instant coffee that is high quality, right? I think that's what people need in the morning, especially as they're working from home. They're going to need a way to kind of instantly make coffee to kick off their morning meetings right before they wake up. So I believe we're still going to be seeing increases in K-Cups or any sort of quick coffee, especially from places like Amazon, where K-Cups thrive. That's a place where a lot of people go to get K-Cups or those, insertable pods. So I think for at home, we're going to be seeing a lot of trends there, and maybe out of the home, I mean, I live in New York City, so it's kind of skewed to say, but just a lot more like off the beaten path coffee brands. So less of like a corporate Starbucks or any sort of larger brands like that, but maybe trying like nearby coffee shops and smaller brands or smaller chains, things like that, to get maybe more of an artisanal coffee. I see that happening more in the future now that we are like reintegrating back into society, and more people are going on coffee dates and things like that. So that's what I expect to see with coffee. Thank you for that question. I'm just reading some other ones. Have you seen any ethnic specific brands penetrate these trends? And if so, for what products? That is a great question. I actually think in my slides, if I go back a little bit, if you see on Amazon, fastest growing keywords, gochugaru. I was looking into this recently, and I can't pinpoint what specific cuisine that comes from, but you're seeing different types of spices and herbs. And I think maybe that's a hot sauce. I don't know if it's a Korean hot sauce. I may be getting that wrong, being a fast search term. And I think that speaks to people's healthy eating habits, and even the increase in, like I was saying, the Mediterranean diet in the future. people naturally are becoming more worldly with their thoughts as they spend more time looking for recipes online, which we saw a lot of. People are running into, ethnic recipes or recipes outside of American culture, and really going out and looking for those brands to make it as authentic as possible. So I think that there are a lot of ethnic brands and products really penetrating the market. Someone said, will this presentation be available today? Sorry, I was late for the meeting. There is a recording of this meeting that will be shared later on. So do not worry about that. You'll be able to get the recording. Thank you though for still stopping in. Okay, let's read some more. How do you think people can start implementing these vitamin trends into their cooking? How can recipes sites really push how to use maca root into their cooking, or will that be a thing? That's a great question. I think that vitamins and supplements is primarily going to stay adjacent to cooking. Vitamins and supplements don't really have, they're not really added into cooking. But what I will say is that even in my own personal experience, when you take vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin B, fish oil, a lot of those vitamins are optimized to be taken during or after a meal, right? So I know that vitamin D is absorbed well when you have already other fats that you're processing in your body. So I think that it's always going to work in like a complement sort of fashion. And in terms of how else it could be, I guess, adjacent to cooking, is that when you see something like, let's say, elderberry. Elderberry is a fruit that is known for antioxidants and just boosting your immune system. So you'll see a lot of people investing in elderberry mixes or juices and things like that, maybe to consume alongside their meals. I was actually doing that at one point, like during the thick of the pandemic. I was like, how many elderberry like juice containers can I have in my fridge? It was like a game, So also someone said it's about the gochujaro is a red chili pepper flake from Korea. Thank you so much. I was pretty close on that. I'm glad I was able to guess. But yes, thank you for that question about cooking. I don't see any more questions coming in, so I'm assuming that is a good stopping point. We're finishing a few minutes early, so you guys will get that back today. But just to continue on past this, thank you all so much again for coming. We have some resources we are going to share with you after the presentation. We have a one-pager that I worked on recently that will talk more about health trends and how Americans are eating healthier. So our team will be able to send that out to you. If you are a Similarweb customer, go into the platform, explore, try and find some of these trends that I spoke of today. You'll find everything that I worked on today in our Similarweb platforms. So know that you have those resources right under your fingertips and those insights. And then lastly, if you're not a Similarweb customer, but you're interested in a demo of the products where I got all of this data from, request a demo, reach out to myself or our team, which we'll share emails with after, so you guys can get connected. But lastly, again, thank you all so much for coming today. My name is Lucas Panato. Again, I'm the industry manager for the food and health categories. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I hope everyone has a wonderful end of winter, crossing our fingers going into a good spring. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from a lot of you later on. So hope you all have an amazing rest of your week.